This is the decade we've been in love. On the giant LED screen above us, a loving memories montage of Dane and me was supposed to play. Instead, the picture cut to a shot of him kissing my best friend Laurel on a Maldivian beach. Gasps swept through the ballroom. Dane's face went paper white. He lunged for the projector, stammering, "Wrong file. It's photoshopped. Honey, don't get the wrong idea." In my last life I'd crumbled, run out sobbing, and handed them the time and space to clean up the mess. Later they dumped me, branding me emotionally unstable, and I walked away with nothing. Now, reborn at this exact second, I watched his pitiful act and smiled instead of cried. I took the microphone from the stunned MC, my voice ringing clear to the last row. "Easy, husband. The real surprises are still coming. Since you love sharing, let me show everyone something nice." Champagne flutes caught the crystal chandelier's glitter, and the air reeked of expensive perfume and long-stem roses. Tonight is my 10th anniversary gala with Dane, and the funeral date of my former life. I'm wearing a custom scarlet gown, champagne flute in hand, perfect smile in place, accepting congratulations. Mr. and Vance, a match made in heaven. 10 years and still glowing, couple goals. Dane stands beside me, squeezing my hand, eyes dripping affection. "Honey, thank you for these 10 years. He's always been a great actor, so great I almost believe we really were in love." The MC announces the commemorative video. Lights dim, every gaze swings to the giant screen center stage. At first it's harmless, clumsy campus selfies, late-night coding sessions, the closing bell photo when we took Vance Tech public. Each slide earns polite coos. Charles and Evelyn at the head table beam, my own parents trade satisfied nods. Dane whispers, "Touching, right? All memories we built together." I stay silent, eyes on the screen, waiting for the guillotine. Now. The image snaps to a different file, a beachside steamy beach shot. Turquoise water, white sand, Dane shirtless, locking lips with bikini-clad Laurel while a Maldivian sunset flares behind them. I remember, last year he said he'd be in Singapore for 2 weeks signing a crucial deal. The contract, apparently, was signed on my best friend's body. Dead silence, 1 beat, 2, then a tidal wave of whispers and squeals. "Isn't that Laurel? Sienna's maid of honor? God, Dane, how could he? Wrong slide?" My parents' faces harden to slate. Evelyn looks ready to faint, Charles's jaw grinds bone on bone. A shriek sails from the crowd, Laurel in snowy white, hand over mouth, playing the innocent damsel. Beside me, Dane turns to stone, color gone. He charges the A/B rack, yanking cables, roaring, "Turn it off, kill it. It's fake. Someone's setting me up. Honey, don't believe this." His voice cracks with guilt, his moves clumsy. "Last time I swallowed the act." I collapsed, sobbed, begged them for answers, and heard him hiss, "Get a grip and stop embarrassing us." I ran, Laurel swooned, Dane took her to the hospital, and the headlines painted me the hysterical wife. Later they siphoned every share, every property deed, armed with a forged psychiatric memo labeling me unfit. I died on a cold, rainy night with no one to close my eyes. This time my heart is a calm slab of ice. As the screen blacks out and the room stalls in mortified darkness, I smile. I pluck the mic from the MC's frozen hand. The soft thump when my nails tap the grill echoes through the speakers, reeling every gaze to me. Dane gawks as if he's staring at a ghost. "Honey, you." I part my red lips, voice velvet soft yet reaching the balcony. "Patience, darling. Surprise is still incoming. You like sharing, so let me share something good." Silence again, thick enough to slice. Dane's pupils shrink, he senses the cliff edge. He lunges for me. "Sienna. Hand me that microphone, now." Before he can reach me, 2 black-suited members of my security detail step from the wings, immovable walls flanking him. Vance, please calm down. Their arms are iron bars, I bought their loyalty months ago, same men who once dragged me out now guard my throne. Out of my way. Do you know who I am? He snarls, a cornered animal. Laurel hurries up, crocodile tears ready. Sienna, let's talk privately, don't do something you'll regret. Another guard blocks her like a polite boulder. King, step back. I ignore the circus, walk to the stage left control console. In the crowd my assistant Chloe flashes me an OK sign. I pull a silver flash drive from my clutch, slide it into the USB port, the cheerful ding rings like a judge's gavel. I lift the microphone again, eyes sweeping across the audience, my mother gripping my father's hand, fury and pride mingling, Charles breathing fire, Evelyn dabbing tears, board members already calculating whose side pays better. Finally I settle on Dane, pinned between human pillars, veins bulging in terror. Dane's right, 10 years deserve a proper commemoration. So I prepared a special gift for him, and for myself. I click the mouse. The LED screen reignites, no more half-naked beach bodies this time. A wire transfer receipt fills the frame, every figure crisp and damning. The LED screen lit up, a wire transfer receipt in black and white, landing on Dane's face like a slap. Sender, Dane. Recipient, Laurel. Amount, $5,200,000. Memo line, baby, you've worked hard. Date, Laurel's birthday last year. I remembered that day. He'd said Vance Tech was in a cash crunch and asked if I could wire $5 million from the dowry Dad had given me. I hadn't hesitated. Turns out his emergency was rushing a birthday gift to my best friend. The ballroom detonated. $5.2 million? That's obscene. The memo says, baby, how do you spin that? This isn't just cheating, it's embezzlement. Dane's roar died. He stared at the screen, swaying as if someone had pulled his bones out. Laurel stopped crying, her face bloodless against the glowing numbers. I gave them no time to breathe. I clicked next. Slide 2. Another transfer. Amount, $1,314,000. Memo, love you forever and a day, my Laurel. Date, Valentine's Day this year. That night he'd handed me a grocery store bouquet and said, old married couples don't need fuss. I'd actually applauded his thrift. Pathetic. I clicked again. Slide 3. Not a receipt this time, a property deed. Aegean Villa, number 8. Owners, Dane and Laurel. Purchase date, 6 months ago. 6 months ago my doctor had ordered me to rest, years of building the company had shredded my health. Dane had cupped my face and crooned, honey, you're exhausted. Let me take the wheel. Stay home, let's make a baby. I'd stepped aside and handed him the kingdom we'd built, and he'd used my money to buy our love nest. The whispers rose, needles stabbing every pore of their skin. My mother was trembling, tears ready to fall, my father's arm locked around her, face thunder black. Charles, Dane's father, pride of the old Vance line, shot to his feet. You animal. You unconscionable animal. Evelyn clutched her pearls, gasping like a fish in a net. I watched, cold. Not enough. This pain wasn't even a pinprick compared to the death I'd lived last time around. My finger hovered over the clicker. Laurel pressed both hands to her belly, eyes wide and glittering. Dane, my stomach, it hurts. Same old trick. I smiled into the microphone. Don't rush the theatrics, King. That bump is tonight's piece de resistance. The room froze. Even Dane blinked, confusion wrestling with rage. A single thought flickered across his face, a child meant leverage. Perfect. I'd let him glimpse the life raft, then shove him under. Click. The LED filled with a Riverdale's clinic ultrasound scan. Name, Laurel. Gestational age, 16 weeks plus 4 days. Due date, 4 months from tonight. The gala shattered into screams. Pregnant? Laurel's pregnant? 16 weeks means she conceived while they were still living together. She's walking into the manor with a baby bomb, disgusting. Every stare became a blade. Charles buckled, only his secretary kept him upright. Dane's expression morphed into something grotesque, shock and shame, yes, but also the faintest, smuggest glow of expectant fatherhood. He actually believed a child would save him, entitle him to half my fortune. He even shot me a look, I still win. Laurel straightened, hand cradling the bump, triumph leaking through her tears. In the last life this baby had buried me. Dane had waved the ultrasound like proof I was barren, disposable. His parents had welcomed the mistress and the heir, I'd become the discarded relic. I let the grin spread. I lifted the mic, voice velvet. Curious whose DNA we're talking about? A ripple, wasn't it obviously Dane's? Dane scowled. Stop the circus, Sienna. I clicked. The screen cut to a sleek PDF. Header, DNA paternity report. The ballroom stopped breathing. Subject A, fetal cells from Laurel's amniotic fluid. Subject B, not Dane. Name, Victor. Below it, a photo of Victor, CEO of Summit Tech, Dane's sworn rival, sitting right there in row 2, champagne flute frozen halfway to his lips. Conclusion, stamped in red, probability of paternity, 99.9999%. Victor is the biological father. The entire ballroom plunged into a silence so complete it lasted a full 10 seconds. You could have heard a pin drop. Every brain in the room seemed to crash, unable to process the avalanche of information. Cheating, a mistress, a pregnancy, a business rival, and now the twist of who's your daddy? This anniversary celebration had morphed into the year's biggest morality play, adultery, betrayal, corporate intrigue, all in one convenient package. Dane was the first to reboot. His eyes bulged like copper bells, bloodshot, flicking in disbelief between the word Victor on the LED screen and Victor himself standing 20 feet away. Then he spun on Laurel, his expression suggesting he wanted to swallow her alive. The baby, isn't mine? His voice came out hoarse and warped, like a broken accordion. Laurel. Tell me, whose kid is it? He tore free of the security detail and lunged, grabbing her shoulders and shaking her like a rag doll. Say it. Spell it out for me. Laurel's body snapped back and forth until her belly slammed against the subwoofer at the edge of the stage with a dull thud. Ah! She screamed, clutched her stomach, and slid to the floor, face bloodless, cold sweat streaming. My stomach, my baby, she sobbed, mascara bleeding into the sweat. Dane, you lunatic. It's your child. Ours. Even now, she kept up the lie. My kid? Dane laughed like a madman, a sound raw with despair. A DNA paternity report just hit me in the face and you still insist it's mine? You think I'm an idiot? He jabbed a finger at Victor in the crowd and roared, it's him, isn't it? Victor's little gift. You slut, what exactly have you been doing behind my back? Victor, suddenly center stage, set down his champagne flute and rose, complexion granite. He probably hadn't expected his cameo to come with spotlight and subtitles. Watch your mouth, Dane, Victor said coldly. If you can't manage your own woman, don't take it out on me. Fuck you. Dane lost the last thread of sanity and charged off the dais, a rabid animal gunning for Victor's throat. Chaos. Guards dove after Dane, guests scrambled backward, terrified of collateral damage. Laurel, watching the meltdown, finally cracked. She sprawled on the floor, arms around her belly, and wailed. No. It's not like that. Dane, listen to me, I was forced. Her shriek sliced the air, drawing every eye. It was Victor. He made me. She pointed at him, features twisted with hatred and terror. He had old videos of us. He said if I didn't play along he'd leak them to you, to the internet, ruin me overnight. He hates you, hates that you stole me, so he plotted revenge. He told me to seduce you, get pregnant, then use the baby to sabotage your company and steal everything you own. I had no choice, none at all. Tears and snot streaked her face as she painted herself the innocent victim of a demon ex. So, my dear best friend hadn't only cuckolded me, she'd cuckolded my husband as well. The life inside her had always been a calculated weapon in a conspiracy aimed squarely at Dane. Dane stared, stunned into stone. His expression cycled from rage to stupefaction to blankness. He thought he'd been the oriole lurking behind the cicada, yet he'd merely been another pawn on someone else's chessboard. A laughable dupe who wore the green hat and happily financed the kid. I stood in the shadow of the stage wings, coolly watching the dogs rip one another apart. Magnificent. More entertaining than any film I'd seen in my last life. In that previous life I hadn't known Victor existed. All I'd discovered was Laurel's pregnancy and Dane's paternity. Together they'd driven me into a corner and straight to my death. Until my last breath I'd believed I'd simply lost to an illicit affair. After rebirth, my first move was to hire Riverdale's top private investigator. I told him to dig into Laurel, every secret, every breadcrumb. I vowed not only to destroy them, but to understand exactly how I'd lost. At first, the files were predictable. For 6 months Laurel and Dane had been inseparable: dinners, movies, a Maldives getaway. He'd showered her with cash, cars, condos. It read like the cheapest cheating cliché. Then the agency delivered one blurry parking garage photo, Laurel climbing into a black Porsche Cayenne. The driver showed only a profile, but I recognized him instantly: Victor, Dane's sworn rival. That single image plucked the cord I hadn't known was taut. Why was Laurel with Victor? I ordered deeper excavation, and the truth surfaced like a corpse in the harbor. Laurel had been Victor's girlfriend long before she became my BFF. They'd dated since college, his family tore them apart, yet they'd stayed half-lovers for years. Her approach to me had likely been stage one of their long con. Through me she met Dane, and at Victor's signal she began her predatory seduction. Reading the report, my hands went ice cold. I'd believed Laurel was the sister fate forgot to give me. When college left me broke, she split her meal card. When a breakup shredded me, she poured tequila, cursed the bastard, cried all night. At my wedding she'd been maid of honor, sobbing that I deserved every happiness. All of it, fabricated kindness, counterfeit affection, meant only to position the knife for a deeper thrust. My heart felt clenched by an invisible fist, breathing hurt. But this time I didn't cry. I simply closed the laptop and called the investigator. Get me Victor's DNA. And find a way to sample the fetus, run a paternity test. When he asked whose name should appear as client B, I answered, "Right, Victor." He hesitated. "Vance, are you sure?" "If the result, I'm sure," I cut in. "I want certainty." The afternoon the report arrived, I stared at the line paternity probability, 99.9999%, and felt nothing. No anger, no sorrow, only a desolate, silent wasteland. My previous tragedy had been a farce from curtain rise. The husband I loved 10 years, the friend I trusted 10 years, had co-starred in a long-running play, and I, the only one who hadn't seen the script, was the butt of every joke. Fine. If they wanted a performance, they'd get the full production. I choreographed this 10th anniversary gala down to the last champagne bubble. Every business partner tied to either family received an invitation. Tonight they would see Dane's real face, Laurel real fate. This glittering anniversary would become their public trial, sentencing included. Enough. A roar cut off Laurel's shrill wailing. It was Charles. His face was livid. Leaning on his cane with every ounce of strength, he walked to the edge of the stage, jabbed a finger at Laurel on the floor, then at his worthless son. The Vance family's face has been completely disgraced by the two of you tonight. He was shaking, cane pounding the floor again and again. One of you is a shameless tramp who can't keep her legs together. The other is a pig-stupid fool danced around like a puppet on a string. How did I, Charles, ever father such a waste of oxygen? He swung his cane and smashed it into Dane's legs. Dane couldn't dodge. The blow sent him sprawling to his knees. Father, don't call me that. I don't have a son like you. Charles's eyes were bloodshot as he pointed at Dane's nose. For a woman like this you betrayed Sienna, siphoned off company money, and now you've created the scandal of the century. Where do you expect me to show my face after this? Evelyn ran over sobbing, tugging at Charles's arm. Lau Vance, please don't be angry, you'll ruin your health. Dane only made a momentary mistake. Mistake? He's driving the entire Vance family straight off a cliff. With a violent shrug Charles threw her off, then turned to me. His eyes were brimming with guilt and remorse. He came up to me, the man who had reigned supreme in the business world for decades, and now bent that proud head to me. Sienna, your father-in-law has wronged you. The Vance family has wronged you. We were blind, we failed to raise this animal properly. Rest assured, I will give you an accounting. In my last life he had said the exact same thing. Back then, when Dane and Laurel had driven me into a corner and I begged him for justice, he'd sworn it with that same broken expression. But the result? While he promised explanations, the moment he learned Laurel carried Vance blood he let them do as they pleased. When I was forced to walk away with nothing during the divorce, he didn't speak a single word in my defense. Because in his eyes a woman who could produce an heir for the Vance line mattered far more than a barren daughter-in-law like me. This new life, I won't believe a syllable. I stared at him, my face showed nothing. An accounting? I repeated the words softly, then smiled. Chairman Vance, spare yourself. I will collect my own accounting. The moment the words left my mouth I looked away from him, raised the microphone, and turned to the pandemonium below. Dane, Laurel, Victor, both sets of parents, everyone fell silent and stared at me, startled by my statement. Their eyes were a tangle of terror, bewilderment, dread. I stepped to the front of the stage under the spotlight the operator smartly trained on me. I alone was the star now. From the master of ceremonies table I lifted a folder I'd placed there earlier and laid it beneath the projector. A single thin sheet, but tonight it weighed 1,000 pounds. On the LED screen, the cover leapt into view. Divorce. The 5 words crashed like 3 successive hammers against Dane's heart. He jerked his head up, pupils contracting violently. No. Sienna, I won't divorce. He lurched to his feet and tried to charge, but security pinned him again. I refuse. I absolutely refuse, he bellowed. Your consent is irrelevant. My voice was ice. Dane, while you were busy breeding another man's child with my dear best friend, I already submitted to the court every piece of proof of your marital infidelity and asset fraud, this divorce petition, and a copy of the freshly printed DNA paternity report. I paused, sweeping my gaze across his terror-twisted face. The summons will be in your hand by tomorrow at the latest. Adultery during marriage, evidence is ironclad. Concealment and transfer of community property, amount enormous. Tell me, Dane, how exactly will you enjoy walking away with nothing? The phrase walk away with nothing exploded above him like a thunderclap. He was genuinely panicking now. No. Sienna. You can't do this to me. He thrashed like mad, his handsome features warped into something grotesque. 10 years together. How can you be so ruthless? One mistake and you'll ruin me? One mistake? I laughed as though he'd handed me the best joke of the year. Dane, you call this one mistake? When you and Laurel carried on behind my back, did our decade together ever cross your mind? When you wired our hard-earned profits into her account so she could buy houses and cars, did our decade together matter to you? When you let her get pregnant by another man and expected me to play the fool, you dared to speak to me of love? With every sentence his face bleached a shade lighter. By the end his lips quivered, he could not muster a single word. He knew, he was finished. Looking at his hollow shell, I felt no pity. This was far from enough. I wanted more than watching him walk away penniless. I wanted him stripped of everything, hurled from the stratosphere into the mud, never to rise again. I drew a slow breath and, into the microphone, announced my final surprise. Also, on this splendid occasion, thank you to every guest and every member of the press for attending. My gaze drifted over the reporters with their long lens cannons. They were my invited guests. After tonight, Dane and Laurel's disgrace would ricochet through every drawing room in Riverdale. Today is not merely my personal declaration of divorce. I let the words hang, then finished distinctly. It is also the inauguration ceremony at which I, Sienna, formally succeed my father as chairman of Vance. This statement outshock every revelation so far. Gasp surged like a tidal wave. Vance, flagship conglomerate of Riverdale, sprawling across real estate, finance, technology, a true titan. And I, sole heiress to the Vance empire, was now in command. Dane began to tremble violently, fear he had never known before dilated his eyes. He sensed what came next. I did not keep him waiting. Looking straight at him, I pronounced his death sentence word by word. Dane, Vance Tech has long been a favored target of my father's. As the new chairman, I have resolved that Vance Tech will be my first order of business, via hostile takeover. A mental mushroom cloud obliterated Dane's mind. Vance Tech was his everything, his decade of blood and sweat, his crowned public company. And I intended to rip it from his hands. No, you can't. His voice was a dying mosquito, eyes unfocused. I savored the sight of him teetering on collapse and slipped in the last blade. Oh, almost forgot. Last week the two largest Vance Tech shareholders, President Lee and Director Zhang, transferred their entire equity stakes to me. In other words, I am now Vancetek's biggest shareholder besides you. Tell me, Dane, with your sleeves plastered across every screen in town, do you think the board will back you, or the new investor ready to shower them with acquisition cash? He pointed at me, eyes bulging, a strangled grunt rattling in his throat. Words failed him. The next instant his eyes rolled back, his body went limp and he pitched straight backward. A muffled thud, he lay sprawled on the cold marble. Dane! My son! Evelyn and Laurel shrieked in unison and threw themselves at his prostrate form. Bedlam erupted. I stood at the epicenter of the stage, bathed in popping flashbulbs and 1,000 gasps, and slowly raised my champagne glass. To the stunned audience below, to the unconscious man on the floor, and to the version of me who had died wretchedly in another life, I toasted, with exquisite poise. To my rebirth. Dane fainted and was half carried, half dragged out by his equally shaky parents and a swarm of security detail. Laurel shrieked, trying to follow, but Evelyn shoved her away. Get lost, you jinx, you homewrecker. The Vance family must have been cursed 8 lifetimes ago to cross paths with you. Evelyn's poison-laced scream ripped through the air, her eyes dripping venom at Laurel. Laurel crumpled to the carpet, dumbstruck. Everything she had plotted, every trump card she thought she held, the baby in her belly, all of it became the biggest joke in the room. Not only had she failed to snag the title of Vance, she was now a rat everyone wanted to stone. Victor's face was equally ugly. He probably never imagined the scheme he'd spun would be overturned by an outsider like me. He'd become the laughingstock of the city. Instead of crushing his rival, he'd been crowned daddy dearest for nothing. Face dark, he slunk out of the ballroom behind his assistant. The grand farce had finally dropped its curtain. Guests began filing out, throwing me glances equal parts awe and curiosity. After tonight, I, Sienna, was no longer the gentle wife behind Dane, but the ruthless new chairman of Vance. My father and mother stepped to my side. Mom's eyes were red as she hugged me tight. Sienna, baby, you've suffered. I patted her back softly and shook my head. Mom, I'm fine. It's over. Dad looked at me, pride and relief shining in his gaze. Well done, he said in his deep voice. I told you, Dane's ambition outran his conscience, he was never husband material. But you wouldn't listen. I've been waiting for you to see him clearly. It's time Vance passed to you. I gazed at my parents. In my last life they'd died never knowing what I'd endured. All they'd known was that I divorced, spiraled into depression, and withered away. They'd mourned me their whole lives. This life, I wouldn't disappoint them. Dad, Mom, let's go home. I slipped my arms through theirs. We turned to leave the hall that had witnessed vendettas across 2 lifetimes. As we passed Laurel, she lunged like a madwoman and clutched my gown. Sienna! You can't leave. Her hair was matted, makeup streaked, tears and sweat streaking her face, utterly wretched. Why did you do this to me? We were best friends, she wailed. Friends? I paused, looking down at her as if she were a clown. Did you treat me as a friend, or as a rung on your ladder? Laurel, I gave you chances. The first time you slept with Dane, the first time you took his money, the moment you chose to carry Victor's child to trap him, I gave you endless chances to stop. You walked every step to this cliff yourself. I was bluffing. I'd never warned her. But I wanted her to know I'd seen every scheme, crystal clear. I wanted her to drown in doubt and dread forever. No, that's not true. Her eyes bulged in horror, head whipping frantically. How could you know? How? How could I know? I bent to her ear and whispered so only she could hear, because I died once already. The very night you and Dane celebrated kicking me out of the house. Laurel's pupils shrank to pinpoints. She stared as though I'd crawled from hell, face drained of blood, let out a short scream, and fainted. I straightened, smoothed the wrinkles she'd clawed into my skirt. I didn't spare her another glance. I looped arms with my parents and, with Chloe beside me, strode out of the ballroom. Outside, the night was deep and calm. I inhaled, the air tasted of freedom. A week later Dane woke in the hospital. His first act, call me. His voice hoarse and broken, nothing left of the swaggering founder. He begged me to spare him, spare Vance Tech. He said he knew he'd screwed up, he'd cut Laurel off completely, he'd sign every dollar over, just don't seize his company. Sienna, Vance Tech is my life. You can't rip it away. He sobbed like a child on the line. I listened in silence. When his tears tired and words failed, I spoke quietly. Dane, remember when our startup got strangled by rivals and the money dried up, nearly bankrupt? That night you got wasted, clung to me and said the firm was your life, if it died, so would you. I knelt before my father for 3 days and nights before he agreed to save us. From that day I swore your life was mine. So I courted investors, hustled clients, handled every chore you hated. I raised that company like our baby. And you? You fed the money our child earned to another woman, to someone else's kid. You tossed your life away first. Since you didn't want it, I'm simply taking it back. I hung up and blocked every number he might use. 2 days later, Vance launched a full hostile takeover of Vance Tech. The board of directors voted yes, unanimous. Dane, the founder, was booted out for good. He lost everything, the firm, the fortune, the reputation, and the son he'd once crowed about. I heard that after discharge he went looking for Laurel. They brawled on the hospital steps. Laurel lost the baby. When Victor learned, instead of comfort he had her beaten and dumped on the street. Her stupidity had turned his slick revenge into statewide mockery. He'd become the punchline at every gala. Laurel went insane. With no child, no backer, no money, and no name, she ranted online that I was a demon back from hell who'd murdered her baby. No one believes a lunatic. She was soon dragged into a psychiatric ward. Dane, stripped of all, collapsed. Gambling and booze swallowed him, debts piled up. Charles was so furious he suffered another stroke, and was left completely paralyzed. The Vance estate fell. It all happened so fast, a tornado ripping through everyone who deserved its wrath. Chloe walked into my office with the updates just as I was signing the Vance Tech restructure plan. I scrawled my name, Sienna, sharp strokes, zero hesitation. "It's over," Chloe said, sighing. I lifted my gaze, sunlight poured through the window, warm on my skin. "No." I smiled. "This is only the beginning." I rose and moved to the floor-to-ceiling glass, gazing down at the rivers of traffic. Last life's debts are settled. The life named Sienna has only just opened its first chapter. From now on I won't pause for any man. My future is glittering galaxies. Thank you for listening. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate this tale? If you enjoyed it, like and share with friends. We look forward to your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe for more enthralling stories. See you next time.